And we are live. A little bit of a surprise since some people are having trouble with Zoom and Facebook interface, but I will take it. So I am Lori DePietro stand-in, and thank you for joining us for episode 27 of the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour. And these are my amazing plant power success coaches, Joanne Nagel and Lori Taylor, who we call LT. So I hope you guys have had an amazing week, and we are just so happy to have you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on the replay. And we always come back and check the comments, so feel free to comment whether you're watching now or later, because we always come back and look. So this week we are talking about stress, and I know that this is a popular topic. We're all dealing with stress, and the thing is even if good things are happening in your life, you can have a good stress too. But in the past a little over a year, we have all had a lot of not so good stress as well. Now, I talk to women on the regular who are thinking about joining my program, and they talk about the amount of stress they've had this past year and the toll it has taken on their bodies and minds. And so I know a lot of you are going through that, and we wanted to talk to you about that today because it is crucial in your health journey, how you handle this. And as I said, when I was, advertising for today, it really is, it's something that shows up in your body and in your coping mechanisms. And so it colors everything. And so that's what we want to get to the bottom of today. I think that the first question, though, is something that is really revolutionary, because I know that everyone deals with stress. Like we said, this is just part of life, but I don't think anyone ever told us how to deal with stress. Like that's not a topic. Like that should be something they talk about in school. Like they're talking about, I don't need algebra. I need my kids to learn how to balance a checkbook and handle stress. Like that's and not to put that on teachers. Obviously, it's something we should be teaching our kids as well, and supporting each other on, because this is something that nobody teaches you how to do, and you start winging it, and usually you don't do a great job. So I wanted to ask the two of you to start. What kind of messages or examples, positive or negative, did you grow up with that were, focused on how you deal with stress?
Well, you know how I grew up in a house with domestic violence and alcohol and drug addiction. So I'm guessing that was how stress was dealt with, was self-medicating, screaming, fighting, just a lot of tension and getting to the boiling point and then bursting. There was no stress management. It was always let it boil over.
Right. Yeah. What about you, LT?
Yes, and I grew up in a house where we didn't talk about our feelings because we weren't allowed to express anything unless it was happy, 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 because we were just under a facade. So, it wasn't even a suck it up buttercup type moment. It was just it doesn't exist, just sweep it under the rug type thing. And, it came out in the ways of anxiety or frustration or anger at times. And I was not allowed to process that. Because I had to be happy.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of, I grew up with domestic violence. And so there was a lot of secrecy, and a lot of, if we complained at all or, showed that we were upset, it was always, it's not that bad. A lot of people have it worse than you do. So it was this, you should be grateful for what you have, and you're not, kind of like what you're saying, LT, you're not allowed to be upset. But because there were outbursts, that's the other thing, is I think it made me, we walked on eggshells all the time.
Yes.
In my house. And so it was very much just a lot of anxiety all the time, not knowing what was going to happen next. So I always felt like I have to be prepared for everything.
Yes.
Because I don't know what's going to happen next. Did you, what about as you got a little bit older? Because I think what happens is when we're young, this is sort of happening, and you don't really you're not old enough to really process it. You don't really
Mhm.
understand. This is just how it
Mhm.
is, you know. But once you got into your teenage years, did you notice any difference between yourself and your friends in terms of stress and how people were handling things?
Well, I just never had an outlet for stress reduction. And a lot of the kids that I liked hanging out with, I wasn't really allowed to do extracurricular things with them because, like you said, everything had to be secret. I was very sheltered. My mom and my dad didn't want to do things with those other parents because those other parents had their act together and
Right.
mine clearly didn't. And so the other kids got to do things like be in band or go to the math bowl or do those kind of things to really have an outlet. And I didn't really have that until, I did cheerleading in high school, but then I was around the wrong crowd with that too. So I did start to notice in high school that other kids had different outlets for stress than I had.
Right. Yeah, it was the
Mhm.
same in my house in terms of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
My parents did not hang out with anyone. We were regularly, like, we weren't allowed to have people over, like other
Yeah.
kids and stuff. They didn't want, because they would be fighting all of the time, and
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't want anybody in their business.
Right.
And also they didn't feel like taking us anywhere either. So there were a
Yep.
lot of times when, so it was a lot of isolation, and
Yeah.
it made me feel very separate
Mm-hmm.
from the people around me. Like I'm different, but then again, you can't say it. You're
Mhm.
feeling it, but you can't verbalize it. What
Mhm.
about you, LT?
Well, mine was completely different because my parents did entertain a lot, and we had people over at our house all of the time, and hosted things and that type thing, and everything was always picture perfect, and the food and the house and everything was just so. And the minute the last guest left, that's when my dad normally just started ripping into people, and and it just led me to believe, it is nothing as it appears, because he was irritated about somebody said something or did something. But see, he play acted and kept it a happy face, because I will admit my dad was very likable. People really enjoyed being around him, and he was very charismatic, and he was fun to be with. But we saw the worst side of him because he did not show that side to other people. And so my mother and I got the shrapnel of all of that. So it just always came to pass that you never knew really where you stood, because they could be smiling and happy, but the minute a door was closed, it was a totally another face.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. So it's funny how we can grow up in completely different environments and yet develop the same issues of,
Mm-hmm.
not really putting our feelings out there,
Mm-hmm.
wanting other people to think that everything is okay. For me, by the time that I was about 15, I developed an eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something else that was going on that, um, you know, at the time, now that I look back on it, there were a lot of it was a sort of a cry for help. But my mom actually knew about it, and she was just annoyed. She's like, why can't you just stop doing that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's, um, even that was like, oh, are you kidding me? You don't have it that bad. Come on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so as you move forward into adulthood, when did you first actually think to yourself, like, oh, wow, I'm not handling things well. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
great at this whole stress thing. Did you have a thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember after my girls were born, I can remember I never thought about having a coping mechanism. And that was when I realized that chocolate was my coping mechanism. And it was so much a coping mechanism that I would actually, when they would cry, because they were both, it was two babies crying at the same time. I was home alone with them, and I just couldn't handle it. And I would just take handfuls of chocolate chips. And before, like when they would wake up from their nap, I remember distinctly going to the baking cupboard, getting a handful of chocolate chips, popping it in my mouth before I went upstairs to get them. And I would be chomping on the chocolate chips as I opened their bedroom door to say, you know, hey, good morning from your nap or whatever. But then I caught myself, I'm like, oh my God, I do that every time they cry. I pop the chocolate chips in my mouth every time they cry. I was like Pavlov's dog, you know, like the bell would ring and I would pop the chips in my mouth. So, I mean, that was definitely a bad coping mechanism. And that's when, you know, I definitely gained weight from that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that was, how old were you then?
31, 32.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were in your 20s, you didn't really think about it in terms of your stress load and all of that?
No, well, then I just had really poor coping mechanisms too, because I was in college.
Yeah.
So I just drank excessively, went to parties, did all the bad things. So
Right. Yeah.
I didn't recognize that as being bad. I just thought, well, this is what everybody does.
Oh,
But
right.
you know,
When you're around other people who are doing it, it
Yeah.
seems just like
exactly.
this is normal. Yeah.
Exactly.
What about you,
Mhm.
LT?
I first really realized it when I was 18, when I went to college for the first time. I don't know why in the world people let me do this, but I took 21 hours my fall quarter freshman year. Somebody really should have put a noose around me at that time and said, listen, girl, you can't do this. And I was an only child here going away. There were 5 of us sharing one bathroom in an unair conditioned dorm. I joined a sorority and I had a new boyfriend who is my husband. So, and it was fall quarter. So that was too much for anybody, you know, to be doing all that, because they expect you to do a lot of stuff that first quarter. And when you join a sorority, I mean, just a lot of extracurricular stuff. And then that, in addition to just being hot and tired and kind of confused and having to share with things because I was an only child and just learning how to navigate. And I remember having my daily cry. I really did have a meltdown and I mean every day. I mean 7 out of 7 days. I did. And sometimes it was short lived and sometimes it lasted for an hour. And I also remember that was the first time that I really had arguments with friends. Before it would be kind of just like a little bit of a, and I remember just one of my suite mates could not stand the girl. I mean, she couldn't walk in the room right. She could not. And she did not like me either. And I will just say, I have never felt that way about anybody. And it scared me because I'm pretend and everything's happy. And I couldn't pretend because this girl was right here. And,
Right.
you know, and that and all the addition. And that's when I just started getting really snappy. And I felt myself. I felt that wave come over me like I'm mad. I felt it. And I ate. And it's the first time I started gaining weight. And you know, I put on, you talk about freshman 15, how about freshman 25
Yeah.
in 2 seconds? That's what happened.
Yeah, I think I was in college and I ended up getting pregnant. And at that point, I had already been hospitalized briefly for an eating disorder. And I was no longer at that point, I had been binging and purging, and I was no longer purging. So, that was a good thing. But they didn't do anything. There was nothing about that really resolved any of my issues. It wasn't, getting to the root of any of the problems. So I was in college and I ended up getting pregnant. And so I had to drop out at the end of my junior year and start working full time, so that I could get ready to support my daughter. And I ended up marrying somebody. He was my high school sweetheart. He was the father, and it was somebody that I just it just wasn't a right. It wasn't the right thing. But at the time, I was sort of like, okay, well, this is what you do. And we had been, using contraception, so we weren't being not careful or anything. This just happened, and so at that point, I thought, okay, I'm going to get my shit together now. Like this is, you got to do this. But, I gained, I think, 60 pounds with my pregnancy, and I was really unhealthy. I had not been heavy before that. So that was the first time. I had always had this thing with weight, obviously, because that was a thing in my home with weight. It was something that was everyone was always talking about. And so, that's the eating disorder. But that was the first time in my life that I actually was like after I had her, I was still wearing like a 14. And that was the first time that that had happened to me. And I kind of thought, okay, well now, this is what happens. The weight just comes off now, right? Like you have the baby and then the weight comes off. And so, but I realized then that I was using, that I was still binging. I wasn't purging, but I was still binging. And so it was still a coping mechanism for me. And so then I had the stress of, motherhood and work and a marriage that wasn't working on top of all of that. And I was in my early 20s. And so I realized as I went through my 20s, because I ended up getting a divorce, that I just had so much anxiety all of the time. And there was just nothing ever seemed right. It was always just such a struggle. And so whether I was, using food as a coping mechanism or, going out with girlfriends on the weekend and drinking or whatever it was never right. And I was also, I would date people that were really, not the right people. just because at that point my self-worth was in the crapper, so there's just so many things I think that we can all delve into our lives and look at all of the different reasons why we are stressed out, whether it is just because we're what we would call normal stress from work and from kids and from all of that, but I think a lot of us are also carrying all this baggage from our childhood that makes the way that we cope with what we would consider normal stress not normal. So LT, let's start with this though. In terms of physically, and mentally and emotionally, did this start showing up in your life other than you realizing I'm stressed out and I'm overeating? Was this showing up in your life in any different way, the stress itself?
Yes, I think that's when I really started berating myself. That's when the self-loathing started coming in because I just couldn't get it right. And that made me more and more stressed because I just felt like other people had a handle on things and I was unraveling.
Right.
And that's when I really started comparing myself to other people. And I guess to self-soothe, you go through a drive-through or you go to a vending machine or you get something delivered or, because that's what I did turn to at that particular time.
Right.
It was comforting, lulled me, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be lulled and not think about it. So you get in that little food coma.
I think, something that's really pronounced for me is we do a lot of mindset work in my program, and almost every woman that I talk to, because I put them through, they go through a series of videos that I've done called the Mindset Marathon, where I'm really open about a lot of my struggles and what they realize from being in our group and from, listening to things that I've gone through and other women have gone through is that they weren't alone.
Yes.
And that's the thing that's so pronounced is we go through those periods of our lives and we're not talking about it and no one else is talking about it because they feel the same way as we do. We all feel like we can't talk about it. We all feel so isolated in a way because I know even now I did not have close friends, but I know you did, LT, and you said you really didn't even.
I didn't talk about the weight part of it because I was so ashamed, but could talk to them. I could have gone to them. And it's something that I could have done. And looking back now, I very well could have done it. Yeah. And I started joining programs at that time. So I did talk to people that were in the particular program who were sitting in the chair next to me or either standing at the weigh-in or whoever was weighing us in. But, it wasn't the in-depthness that we talk about in the program that we have. It was kind of more of a chit chat. Look at us, here we are again, blah, blah, blah. Whereas we're really getting into the meat of the matter of why we even got here. But, I think that the main thing is that I was so ashamed. And I think it was just, I can't even describe to you how personal I made everything. And I turned everything back on me and that it was my fault and I couldn't get it together. And then it didn't even translate into the food areas anymore. It became in other areas of life that I was just, a bad person. in different ways. Like, and that was simply not the case. It was not true. And I was feeding myself a bunch of malarkey, but I was buying it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
starts to snowball. It starts
Yeah.
out as my weight, my
Yes.
physicality, and then it starts to color everything. And we talk about that. I have a video called State of Being here in the group that talks about how when you are struggling with your physicality, whether it's just with weight, extra weight, or with symptoms, which a lot of us have. I mean, people are having, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, they're having achy joints and all these different things that you're dealing with. I personally have fibromyalgia. So there's all sorts of things that you could be dealing with in your physicality. That is the lens that you see everything through. So it starts off just being about like, oh, I got to get this weight off. But then it starts to be like, this is how I look at the world. The same way that I'm looking at myself is how I look at everything.
Yes.
Any thoughts on that, Joanne? Like, how was that showing up any specific way in your life besides the extra weight?
In hindsight, yes. And at the time, I didn't know that my physical symptoms that I was dealing with had anything to do with anxiety or stress or any of it. But in college, I started having vertigo, like severe vertigo, where I would have what they call drop attacks. I would just be sitting in a class and just boom, down on the floor, and vomiting, and the room was spinning and I couldn't get up. That happened to me so many times. And I'm talking in, of course, the worst situations. We'd be at a restaurant, I'd be down. We would be out in public or, anywhere. I would just be down. I was at work once. I worked, before I had kids, I worked at a zoo. I remember walking down a hallway and just hit the floor one day because the vertigo just came over me, and the ambulance took me. The ambulance had to take me out of there because nobody knew what was happening when a otherwise healthy looking young woman just drops to the floor. They think the worst. And that started happening more and more and more. And then also migraines. I had been having migraines since right around 20 years old. I remember having my first migraine on Christmas. Imagine that. It was probably stress provoked. And those got to the point where I was having 3 to 4 per week. And they were the kind where I was like down out, on the couch, couldn't take, and my kids at that point, that lasted, I mean, I still get migraines, but not like I did before. I was getting 3 to 4 per week when my kids were like 3 years old. I would have to call my husband to come home from work. Like, look, there's 2 3-year-olds running the house right now, ransacking the cupboards because I've been on the couch for 5 hours. And I couldn't live. I just could not function between the vertigo and the migraines. I literally could not get up a lot of the days of the week. So, and I had no idea that that was linked to either what I was eating or how I wasn't dealing with stress properly. I mean, I had no idea that that's what it was.
Yeah. Did the medical community give you any, I know that you were put on some meds, but did they give you any kind of diagnosis?
They said I had Meniere's disease, and that's a vestibular disorder. I had multiple MRIs of my brain with dye shot through my veins so they could see if I had a brain tumor or an aneurysm waiting to happen, or, had I had a mini stroke, like they just could not figure it out. Nothing ever showed up. I was looking at me, you would think, oh, she's fine. Looking at all the diagnostics, I was fine. And there was just really no answer for it. And I did end up getting put on a beta blocker to help with the migraines, which it did because it lowered my blood pressure. But now I'm off of that.
Right.
And I had vertigo too. I had about 5 different episodes where I was Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, where it was spinning like what she was talking about. And they thought it was a heart problem. So I was on a heart monitor. I've had multiple MRIs. I've had multiple testings, and it's an awful feeling. I mean, what she's talking about, you get hot, cold, clammy, sick, nauseated, throwing up. One of the worst ones I ever had was in a movie theater where I literally just picked something off the floor. And I mean, it was awful, throwing up all in it's horrendous.
It
when
is.
when you're in a public place like that.
Yep.
And I've also had one time when I was driving, and I literally just had to pull to the side of the road and put my hazards on, and people
Mhm.
were honking at me, and I was sitting here going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You just feel like that. You feel like you're about to have a heart attack is what
Yep.
it feels like.
Yep. Same thing. I did it in a movie theater too. And in college once, I had it in a movie theater. I managed to get myself out of the theater. My husband watched the rest of the movie. He didn't even think, like, he wasn't my husband at that point, and I probably shouldn't be after that thing. But I literally was in the bathroom of the movie theater for 2 hours on the floor of the movie theater, on the floor of the bathroom, not able to get up.
Well,
He was
Tim got
watching
the
his
wrong
movie.
Tim got the wrong set of keys out of the car, and I was sitting here throwing up and crying, and crying hysterically. And I've never seen that man run like an Olympic athlete, because he's like, oh my gosh, I got the wrong set of keys. And he came back. He did everything he could, because he felt so panicked and helpless,
Mhm.
because I was pitiful at that
Yep.
point. And
Yep.
because I had been throwing up so much, I had started peeing all over myself. So yeah, I was a mess.
I
It was a
know.
mess,
I've lived
is all I'm
that.
gonna say.
So I think I've thankfully never had the
Thank your
Come
stars.
on, it's
the
fun.
vertigo
It's a
and
good
all of
time.
that. For me, and I've always had low blood pressure, so that was never an issue for me. But I have, which I wasn't diagnosed with until I was 30. I have dysthymia, which is long-term depression for 10 years or more. So for me, so the thing that the doctor said to me at that time that I really remember is that, when your brain is forming, if you are under constant stress, it inhibits your brain from forming correctly. You're never able to produce the right chemicals, because you're always and if you're in this fight or flight thing, you're always on high alert. And so he's like, once we put you on medication, you're not going to be able to go off of it, because your brain cannot do this on its own. And so, that I think the depression is something that and I know a lot of people in this group understand this, is, when you have to get up, especially when you have kids, because I did not want them to know how depressed I was, obviously. So I went from, before I had kids, just feeling like, well, if it gets really bad, I could just off myself at any time, to, once I had kids, being like, well, obviously I'm not going to do that. So how do I just act like everything is okay all the time, even when I don't feel like it's okay? And so just to get up every day and feel like I just got to get through this day, every day feeling that way. Like that's my goal, is just to get through this day and get to bed and be done with it. I mean, that was just a horrible way to go through life. And with those I know there's people in this group also who have fibromyalgia. So you get these knots, these stress knots in your body. It's sort of this radiating pain. And so having to deal with that on top of just feeling like I've just got to get out of bed, like that being the huge struggle, was just exhausting. It's just, it wears on you to be feeling like that all the time. Yeah.
Yes, that was the first time I'd ever felt that way, was postpartum depression. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was not expecting it, didn't know where it came from, was in denial, literally in denial for 2 years, until it could not be denied anymore. Absolutely could not be denied. My husband came into the room, I think I've maybe even shared this before, bawling, threw himself on the bed and said, I'm begging you to get help. And I looked at him like, I wish you would leave me alone. And I thought, something's not right. Something's not right. I can't deny it anymore. I can't pretend anymore. I've got to get help. And that's when I started taking medication, and when I started going to therapy, and it turned around a lot quicker than I thought. And I thought, I have really suffered with this. That was needless. I should have gotten help way before now. And I'm constantly under management with it, because I'm so frightened of how I used to be, that I just keep myself in check and manage that, because I really didn't want to live anymore. I really didn't. And it scared me.
Mhm.
It really did.
Yeah, I think that, that's the other thing that I talk about, because I want to normalize, is that, sometimes you don't need medication, but sometimes you do.
Yeah.
And it's
And I
okay
did.
if you're taking it. It's okay if
Mhm.
I've been on medication since the year, 2000, and it absolutely will never stop taking it. So it's
I'm
been
too
a
scared
great,
not to take mine either. So it was so frightening to me that I still stay on mine.
yeah, I mean, my doctor told me you will not be able to go off with this. For me, this has been a good medication. It's been, and it doesn't make me happy. I still went through the worst time in my life with that medication.
Mhm.
But it got me out of bed.
Yeah.
So there's that. I'll take it, like that.
Yeah.
If that's, then you have work to do from there. So that's the other thing I want to say, is just that if you are on medication, there's so many people who are, and it's okay. Some people need it and some people don't. Is it overprescribed? Probably. But if you need it, you need it. And there's no shame in that, just like you might need any other type of medication.
That's
So
right.
that's something that I just want to get out there, because that's another thing we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Like there's some kind of shame in that, and there shouldn't be.
No.
So I know, LT, you've talked about in our group the 4 negative patterns of thinking. And I wanted to touch on those because I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to some of these, and maybe we can each give some examples, and we can get some people to comment what their examples might be of what those 4 ways of thinking, how those have impacted their life. So can you give us a rundown?
Yes, the first one is called filtering, and that's when you magnify whatever the bad is going on. There may be 10 things going right and 1 thing going bad, and you completely hone in on the bad and you exasperate it. I mean, it's just, you blow it up. And that's called filtering. Another one is called personalizing, and that's when you take the blame for everything. It's always, I'm sorry, or I should have, or why didn't I? And it may not even be your fault, but you're making it your fault.
Yeah.
You believe that it's your fault. Another one is catastrophizing. And that's when you absolutely anticipate the worst. You have already created this worst case scenario in your brain. And to you, it's already come to pass, or it's coming to pass. And you believe that it's going to happen. So you're always looking for the worst thing to happen. The other one is polarizing. And that is when you think that if you're not perfect, you're an absolute failure. You've got to be right all the time, or you're not even worth it. And this is simply not true. There is a lot of middle ground. There's a lot of gray area. It's not black and white. It's just really not. But we convince ourselves that it is.
Right.
And that's not the case. And I would say the thing that I did a little bit of all of these at some point or another. But the main thing that I did was filtering. And that's because I had wonderful things going around me. And I had some, things that were bad that I couldn't handle. And I let it color everything. It tainted, it put its little tentacles into everything and made me feel worthless and stupid and dumb and ugly and can't get it right. And what's my problem? And I had great things. And now that I have doing this, I see so clearly the great things. They're almost in color, bright, shining lights, because I see them so clearly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you, Joanne? What do you think that you tend to focus on in those 4 different types of negative thinking in the past? What was your favorite?
My favorite was catastrophizing, and anybody that knows me knows that I was the queen of that. I was always what if this is going to happen? I know this is going to happen. We're going to get there and there's going to be a hurricane, or there's going to be a tornado, or there's going to, the bridge is going to break, or and so in doing that, the way I twisted that, I guess, was I just felt like, well, I'm just always prepared. I'm a good Girl Scout. I always pack a bag for everybody in case there is a hurricane, a blizzard, a tornado. I pack everything. When I pack for a vacation, I pack for every potential situation, because I think it's all going to happen. And in doing that, I know it's based in fear, and it's probably a trauma response, because a lot of things did go wrong. Like you said, even if you had plans, everything was going, you never knew when that other shoe was going to drop. When are the cops going to show up? When is the, the turkey going to fly across the dining room table? Like, you just never knew what to expect. So you kind of just grow up expecting that some nonsensical thing is going to happen, even if it's absurd.
Yeah.
So
and if you think if you prepare for the worst, then you have a little bit of control over it, because I've already pictured the worst that can happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I did it for so long. But what that creates is I stopped doing things. I used to be super adventurous. And, I was the kid who I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be Joan Jett, when I was little, or Cyndi Lauper. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to do all these adventurous things. And as an adult, I wanted to play it safe. I wanted safety. I wanted comfort. I wanted normal. I didn't want to move outside the lines. I just wanted to stay safe. And that's exhausting. If you're the only one in the situation who's trying to be safe and everybody else is like doing whatever, then I tried to control all of them as well, because they weren't being safe enough. So the catastrophizing was really, I didn't have time for anything else, because I was busy doing that.
Well, it does make you feel like you're preparing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made me feel good. I thought I was doing a good thing.
Right. It makes you feel like you're preparing, but all you're doing is destroying any peace you have in the moment, because all you can think about is what bad thing could happen, which most of the time the bad thing doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
Well, no.
But also it just is so anxiety producing.
Yes.
That's something that I would just ruminate about. What are all the different scenarios that could happen? What are all the different ways that I can react to these scenarios?
Yeah.
And it is exhausting. And I think also another way that we personalize it, besides thinking everything is our fault, is just thinking everything is about us. Like everything everyone said, everything everyone did, I think really personally, because I just assumed it was about me. I remember in my 30s, someone saying to me, believe it or not, Lori, it's not always about you, like, and it wasn't because I was, it was because I assumed something somebody said was like a dig against me.
Right.
No, that person wasn't even thinking about you. So we take these things personally, because when you're already feeling bad about yourself, and you're already beating yourself up all the time, and you're already high anxiety, and you're already trying to control everything around you, then the slightest little thing that could damage that or set things off balance is a huge freaking deal. And you're looking for it all the time. And I think even, and we've talked about this before, like even with my kids, like you just can't stand anything to be out of line, because you're irritable all the time, because you're so stressed out. And as much as I wanted, and I did, have a much more fun household than, I grew up in, obviously, but I was just so irritable all the time. It was just so hard for me to just relax. And, I know that my kids felt that. And so now, like I said, I didn't really, I finally went to the doctor and got medication because I got to the point where I was having trouble just getting out of bed.
Yeah. So I had gotten to that point with the postpartum. I couldn't function hardly anymore. Yeah. I was isolating.
What about you, Joanne? Did you seek help, or were you just like, I'm just going to power through this?
Yeah, I was just going to power through it, because that also gave me control. But I will say that when I went on the medication for migraines, part of the reason why I was on it for so long was because I begged the doctor not to take me off of it too. I was like, because it helped my anxiety so much. It's an adrenaline blocker.
Right.
And it took me out of being in constant fight or flight. And so I didn't have as many vertigo episodes when I was on that medication either. It greatly reduced it. Amazing, because then I didn't have the anxiety. And I didn't, all the chemicals weren't going through my brain, getting released for no good reason. So I was scared to go off that medicine, honestly. And in the beginning, in the first month that I went off of it, I was walking on eggshells, and that was just this last August. So I was on it for 12 years. And I did go off of it because it has so many side effects. I had gained so much weight. I was so sluggish. It really hindered a lot of things that I did, and it wasn't making me feel good. So, the doctor said, well, I think you can wean off of it now, and we'll see what happens. And I was really nervous to go off of it because I thought, oh my God, that feeling is going to come back. I didn't care about the migraines. I didn't care about the vertigo. I didn't want that elephant sitting back on my chest. And it did come back a little bit, but because I have skills now, because you have shown me that your Jedi ways, I started meditating. I started, exercising and going for walks. And I'm not saying that that's the cure all for everybody, but for me, not having any coping mechanisms and then learning how to control that within myself. I mean, it was a rough 4 weeks. The first 4 weeks I was off it, but now I'm like, I don't need it. I don't need it because I don't feel that anymore, because I know how to deal with it.
And I also just want to say too, for, a lot of the women, this has happened over the years where women are losing weight and they're not necessarily talking to their doctors about their medication, because a lot of these medications are based on weight. So I just want to say that when you do lose weight, it's, so it's important to talk to your doctor about your dosages and whether or not you can get off some things, because if you're still on it at that same dosage, it can actually make you feel worse.
Yeah.
So it's just something to keep in mind for anyone who is who's listening today. So what have been the biggest aha moments that you've experienced since starting the program in terms of changing your patterns? Because for those who don't know, we work a lot on mindset in the program, because that I realized when I started this process that it wasn't just about weight loss, that the weight was actually a symptom of a lot of things that were going on with me. I married the wrong person. When I was really at my heaviest and sickest, I was not in a good marriage. I married someone who had a similar view to me to what my parents had of me, like you're not good enough. We often repeat these patterns. And so there was constantly this condescending, you're a screw up type of attitude towards me, which was making things much worse. So that is also another thing, is like whoever you're surrounded with is also part of this. And you will often attract people who feel the same way about you that you really feel about yourself. And so that's only going to add to your stress, because you can be trying to get out of this sort of, way of thinking, but you have people around you who are keeping you where you're at. So that can be really, really difficult. So there's so many things that play into the weight with our stress. And I realized that is actually why I named my company InnerStrength, because I realized, I've come up with this amazing weight loss program. It's easy and it works, but if you don't have the inner strength to really change, then you can't stick to anything. You can't this is not going to really change anything. So we do so much mindset work in the program because of that, in our weekly group coaching calls and in the individual mindset work that I do with people. So what kind of, or when or whatever, with your aha moments, have you experienced in terms of how you're changing mentally and emotionally and how you deal with stress?
Well, I think one of the big aha moments was 2 years ago. I think it was the Christmas before COVID. We had been invited to go on an overnight with some friends of ours. And up until that point, I would have absolutely said no, because what if, they asked us to go to downtown Chicago. Ooh, scary. They asked us to, go to restaurants that they were making all the plans. So that was going to have to, I was going to have to let my control of that go. I didn't want to bring the kids to the city because scary, scary city. And so I said yes to it reluctantly, but I said yes. And I honestly had the time of my life. I mean, it was like, I want to do it all over again. And it was amazing. And that was a huge aha moment for me that, physically, I feel better so I can participate in things. I don't have to make as many preparations. I don't have to bring as many changes of clothing. I can enjoy myself and not feel fatigued by 7 p.m. And this was New Year's Eve. So we stayed up all hours and had a great time. And then the other time that was recently was when I went out to visit my sister in Colorado. I had planned to go visit her in April and have a fun vacation where we were going to hike and do all kinds of things. Well, then she decided to break her leg and needed surgery in February. So she just called me up and said, hey, can you come now? Can you switch your trip and come now? And the old me would have absolutely lost it. Like, oh my God, no, I can't. What about the kids? What about the dogs? I was like, yep, let me see. And I got on, I found a flight and I was like, okay, I'm coming. And that whole thing unraveled to be so crazy with the canceled flights, the lost luggage, and through that whole time, I just sat there like, well, they're going to get me to this point. They're going to get me to Denver. And once I get to Denver, I'll figure it out from there. And when I was in Denver, then I'm like, okay, now how am I going to get to her house 5 hours from here? The old me would have lost it completely. And I was just going with the flow, allowing it to happen. And it just unfolded in a really amazing way. And every hour that passed over that whole week, I was like, my God, this is amazing. If you just allow things to happen and you don't freak out about them, more good things happen. It's like, the light bulb went on, actually.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one mantra that we have in our group is I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Like the serenity prayer, you have to have the courage to change the things you can, but you have to know that if there's something you can't change, you have to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that a big part of the way we cause ourselves stress is by not accepting things we can't change.
Yep.
If we just, we're holding it out here like, no. Well, look, it already happened. So you can, no, all you want, but it still happened. And you need to allow it and move on from there. Okay, so that happened. So now what? Instead of ruminating and losing it over things that already occurred.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that mantra is huge. Just allowing things to unfold and reacting accordingly. What about you, LT? Aha moments for you?
I've had so many that I can't even name them all, but the main thing that I do notice is in my old life that I would pack a bag and I would be out of there in 6 months with an old program if something wasn't going right and I just didn't stick with things. And what I have allowed in this program is I have really taken it day to day, and I can control what I do today, my choices today. And I've really seen that for the first time when I first started this. And I just said, I don't have a deadline on this. I'm doing this until. And if, it may not take 3 months, it may not take 6, it's taken me the better part of a year to get where I've got, and I've just stuck with it. And I've said many times before that I have severely underestimated my food addiction. And once I got really honest about that, and once I got control over that, and that broke that hold that it had on me, things just got to be a lot easier. And I felt like that I had this support from the group. I felt like I was given meal ideas and food choices and simple things and easy things and delicious things. So I never felt like I miss all of that because I liked what I was doing today. And then I would get up and I would do it again the next day. I'm going to do it today because I always told myself that my future success is hidden in my daily routine. And for the first time, I really started believing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we have so many circumstances. So for me, just being able to navigate life without constantly being the source of my own problems because
Mhm.
I am, you know, being, you know, irritable or angry or, taking things personally or, constantly trying to prepare for the worst, or it's just all, to really be the calm, because you can't control the storm. All you can control is yourself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So be the calm in the storm. It has been revolutionary instead of the times of my life when I was the storm.
Yes.
Right.
Um, or certainly made the storm much worse.
Yes.
Um, so how do you feel like the way that you're handling things now, handling things differently, is affecting your relationships and your life as a whole?
I think it's allowing me to just experience more things and be checked in and not always be thinking, what's the next 3 steps? I'm in the
Be
moment
present.
now. I am
Yeah.
present in the moment. And I have really, even just in the last probably 3 months, I have really been digging deep into um, allowing things to happen and allowing things to unfold and not trying, really trying to not control things because I'm allowing, and I always tell this to my clients, I'm like, allow yourself to be a learner. Well, I need to take my own advice because here I am over on the teacher end of things going, yeah, but I'm the mom. I used to be the teacher. I used to be the instructor. I need to just chill out and be the learner. And that has made all the difference for me in this program is just learning from other people, learning from you, learning from the other coaches. And even though I'm a coach, I'm coachable from the other coaches and from my clients. It goes both ways. You always learn something in a situation. And so like controlling my energy and allowing things to unfold, I think anybody around me could feel that difference, that it's not up here anymore. It's just like, okay,
And I know
allow it.
you've said
Mhm.
that it has affected your kids, like
Mhm.
the energy in your home as well.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, when I was really working on it myself and I was really trying to be aware of the energy I brought into a room, I would say it out loud. I would say, like, we're going to go get in the car. Anybody with good energy can come with me. If you don't have good energy right now, stay home. Because, so many times you get in the car and the kids are in the back and they're like, "Ah," and I'm like, nope, pull over. You're going to get out because you got bad energy. And so now, like, it's just a thing. You need to be responsible for the energy you bring
Yeah.
into a room. And if you don't have that good energy, I'm over here with my good energy. I don't want it. Just exit
Y'all
and
stay
come
over
back
there.
in. Yeah,
That's right.
go over there, come back in when your energy's good. And then, that's a boundary that we've set. And I'm hoping that they feel it and that they can recognize when other people around them as teenagers have bad energy and situations that they need to be discerning about where they're putting themselves in. And learn to read the energy in a room and to see if that's really where you belong.
Right. It's such a life skill.
Mm-hmm.
And again, something nobody ever said anything to me about,
Mm-mm.
for sure. It's like something
No.
that I've learned now that I'm like, oh, if I would have learned this when I was about, 8.
Yeah.
Um, what about you, LT? How has this affected your relationships and in your life in general?
I'm much happier, but happy is just such a word that's just happy. But it goes way beyond happiness. There's a lighthearted spirit about me now. There is just a love for things, an excitement for things, an anticipation for things, but it's all for the good that's going to come out of things. It's not a dread the way it was. That the scenario has been flipped. And you cannot help but notice that when you're around me. I'm calmer.
Mhm.
I am more thoughtful. I listen better because I don't have all this junk going on. So I'm really with you. When I'm with you, I can hear it. And I feel like that I have a lot of purpose. I feel like I have a lot of meaning in this work we do with other people, and the life that I've created through my activities, and what I'm choosing to do and what I'm choosing not to do. And there are some people in my life that are just not a big part of it anymore like they were. You know, you don't have to be best friends with every single person you come in contact with. There are friends that are in life for seasons, and some people are acquaintances, and that is a natural order of progression. And before that, you just used to kill me, because I just thought you got to work harder to some things need to be let go. And you know, you're the better for it, I'm the better for it, they're the better for it, but we don't have to be ugly about it. It's just the way that things are. You know, we're changing, we're growing, we're evolving. And I think that's a good example to show, you know, my daughter especially, who is a graduating senior in high school, because she's about to be on the major life transition. And things are not going to be the same with some of her friends that she's having right now. And that doesn't mean, you know, you can still be friends with people, but you don't have to just cut people out completely. And before, it was just so black and white to me. And I just feel like I'm a lot more open to a lot of different ideas and people and that type thing. I'm not shutting things down, and I'm more thoughtful and listening and making more careful decisions. I was a lot of knee-jerk decisions before. Just real quick.
Me too.
Shut things down easy.
Right.
And now I'm like, let's talk about that. Let's think about that. What would that be like?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, because when you're feeling like I'm saying, like, you know, when you feel calm and within yourself, and you're not overloaded with all the stress and anxiety and self-hate and all these things that we're dealing with, it enables you to make better decisions.
Yes.
And besides the fact that you're much more pleasant to be around.
Yes.
Yeah. And like I've said before, you know, when my kids have said to me that they appreciate the way that I handle things. And my son said that to me a couple of months ago, and it really meant a lot to me, because he's a teenager. So as you know, they don't have a lot of great things to say most of the time. But because that's my goal, I want to be able to teach them life skills like that. Like, how do you handle things better? You know, how do you handle stress and situations in a way that makes sense and doesn't make you crazy and doesn't make everybody around you crazy?
Yes. I always craved balance. I always wanted to be that steady line. It's something that I just never felt that I could have. I just thought I was too up and down with different things. And when you finally have that steady balance, it's everything. It's all that I've ever wanted and more. And I feel it, and it affects every relationship, everything that I do, because I feel so centered and aligned now. And I just never could get it. I could get it sometimes, but then it would leave. But I feel like that I'm more just aligned.
Right. And so to recap what we're talking about, because these are the things that we do in the program, are, you know, your state of being is really affected by your physical self. And so that's, you know, where it starts is well, it started with us not really learning any kind of positive coping mechanisms, most of us, when we were growing up. Then we're taking the stress in on ourselves, and we're, you know, behaviors like, you know, overeating, like, you know, binging, like drinking, like doing a lot of wine. You know, there's things that we do that we start to just medicate with. Zoning out in front of Netflix for, you know, 12 hours, like all the time, like that's, you know, so we start doing all of these things, and that snowballs as we get older. And, you know, we're viewing the whole world through how we feel physically, which is not good. You know, and so that is how it starts. And the way that we first address that in our program is by getting your physicality under control. That starts the first week, getting your control back, so you don't feel like you're at the mercy of all these cravings and these, you know, like I always say, getting that monkey of food addiction off your back right off the bat. But then we work on things like setting boundaries. Joanne, you touched on this. Like, boundaries they're absolutely key.
Mhm.
because most women do not know how to set good boundaries, and that's
Mhm.
part of the problem.
Mhm.
And then we do talk about positive coping mechanisms, because even if you have good stress, it's still stress. You still need coping mechanisms, but if your coping mechanisms are making things worse, right? You don't need those. What you need is positive coping mechanisms. So we talk a lot about that. We talk about focusing on what you want instead of what you don't want, which
Mhm.
is, part of what LT was talking about with, filtering, like, when you're always just focusing on the worst, and all of the bad things that could happen and all the things that are standing in your way, you're just going to attract a whole mess of
Mhm.
problems to
Mhm.
yourself, because that is
Mhm.
all you're focusing on is those problems. And then, so we focus on what we want. We train our minds to do that. And then your vibe attracts your tribe, because when you are part of a really healthy group of women, healthy physically, but also healthy emotionally, that is just transformational.
Yeah.
To be around people who are genuinely happy for you, genuinely want you to succeed, that aren't competing with you whatsoever, who, if you want to better yourself, they are all for it. And if you're having a bad day, they're there for you as well. So just to really, a place where you can be real, is really transformational. So those are the keys. Again, you can also go back to my state of being video, or building you a life you love. Those are two videos that we have here in the group that you can search and get more on those topics, or join us, because we would love to help you on this journey. We have over 200 women in the group now. It's an amazing experience to be in there. And our coaches are a huge part of that. So Joanne and LT, and then we also have April and Linda and the women that they work with. It really is an amazing process to have somebody there with you every step of the way.
Mhm.
So we've had a couple of comments. Tammy said that one of the hardest lessons to learn is being kind to yourself, which is
Yes.
so true, so
Mhm.
true. Brittany said she could really relate to you, Joanne, when you were talking about the airport and all of the,
Mhm.
which I remember that, because you were telling us, like, well, I'm going to be at the airport for a while, so I'm just going to power walk. And so
I did. I got a lot of exercise in that day. I
just go
allowed
with
it.
the flow.
And
Yeah.
I had a great vegan lunch. I sat there, I relaxed, I power walked for a while. I mean, it was like one of the best days I've had in a long time. And it was quite by accident.
Right. And then Gina says, this has been a great topic today, because we all have some type of stress. Thank you for sharing. It made me realize where some of my stress comes from. So,
Mhm.
and that's what we always hope for with the InnerStrength Empowerment Hours, that you're getting insight, because
Mhm.
we want to really be real. Because I think a lot of the problems that we have in society and in female relationships is just not always just being honest and
Yeah.
open about some of the issues that we're struggling with. And when you do that, you realize that you're not alone. And Amy says, thanks so much for sharing your stories. It's always great to feel you're not alone. So thank you so much for joining us for episode 27. And thank you again to Joanne and LT for always being so forthcoming with your journeys and helping everyone with your stories. And we will see you next week.
Okay. Bye. Have a good weekend.